there are a number of issues connected to prayer, such as Allah Azza wa Jal has uplifted the pen of accountability, so a person is not accountable if he's a child until he reaches the age of puberty. If he's asleep until he wakes up, and if he's insane until he regains his sanity. So children are not obliged to pray, but we are, as adults, obliged to order them and instruct them to pray when they're 7 years of age. So it is important to say that if a child doesn't pray when he's 7 or 8, he's not sinful because he's not accountable, but we as adults are if we don't wake them up to pray or order them to pray. Likewise, a woman in her menses, she's not obliged to pray. Allah has exempted her from prayer and the likes. Secondly, if a child reaches the age of puberty, or a disbeliever becomes a Muslim and he reverts to Islam, or a woman on her monthly cycle becomes pure just before the end of time of that prayer. Let's assume it's Asr prayer. And the child becomes an adult, the kafir becomes a Muslim, a woman in her menses becomes pure, someone who's insane regains his sanity just before sunset by the time sufficient to perform 1 rak'ah. In this case, this prayer becomes mandatory upon them to pray. Even if the sun sets, they have to make it up. Because the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, whoever attains 1 rak'ah of a prayer, meaning before the time expires, then he had attained the whole prayer. Okay, what about if a person reverts to Islam? Do we order him to make up for all the missed prayers? The answer is, of course not. Islam erases whatever was before it. And never had the Prophet ﷺ ordered anyone who accepted Islam to make up for these missed prayers. Even more, if a person neglects a prayer until the time is up, and then he feels remorseful and wants to make it up, we say, you can't make it up. Why? Because prayers are time-bound. It has a beginning and it has an end. As you cannot pray the prayer before the beginning of the time, you cannot pray Maghrib 1 minute before the sun sets, or even 5 seconds before the sun sets. You can't, because it has a beginning. Likewise, you can't pray the prayer after the time has expired if you skip the prayer without any Islamic legitimate reason, such as sleeping or forgetfulness. If you deliberately skip it until the time has expired, you cannot make that up, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows better.